All right, what's going on? Today we're going to be discussing periodization, very important APUSH historical thinking skill for the long essay. So, the prompt is analyze to what extent the conservative resurgence changed the economic and social policies of the United States government from 1980 to 2008. All right, so our thesis is, despite certain liberal decisions, such as Roe v. Wade being implemented, the period from 1980 to 2008 was marked by an overhaul of the welfare system, an increase in military spending, and tax cuts overall. So, point one is that many liberal court decisions regarding social issues remained in place, such as Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. So, support for argument, which is an important facet of the APUSH long essay rubric. This is you got to hit this home. Roe v. Wade, it remained despite opposition from conservatives. However, they were able to chisel out a little bit the statute of abortion. They chisel it out a little bit with Webster versus Reproductive Health Services, which approves state laws restricting abortion, and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which said that states could regulate abortion in the first trimester. And also stem cell research. This was more in the Bush administration, this dilemma, because it basically said it was a dilemma, should the rights of the unborn be protected, or should the embryos be used for cancer research and potentially unlocking medical breakthroughs? So basically Bush said,
"Good evening. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time tonight so I can discuss with you a complex and difficult issue, an issue that is one of the most profound of our time. The issue of research involving stem cells derived from human embryos is increasingly the subject of a national debate and dinner table discussions. The issue is confronted every day in laboratories as scientists ponder the ethical ramifications of their work."
That was his point of view on it. And you can see how it appealed to both sides of the argument. So a counter argument that could be used, saying what conservatives' significance, them, socially, is Jerry Falwell, televangelist, solidifying this Bible Belt Southern Christian conservative base. Don't ask, don't tell policy. It kind of established a stigma around gays in the military because they couldn't really go to anybody, and they really couldn't, and no one could really ask them. So we could see how it appealed more conservatives who would not like them to be in the military.
The issue is not whether there should be homosexuals in the military. Everyone concedes that there are. The issue is whether men and women who can and have served with real distinction should be excluded from military service solely on the basis of their status.
We also see later in the period Bush creating the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives, and basically saying that you give funding to charitable church organizations, the government would do this, and basically this would be preferred over just complete welfare reliance. Point two is the welfare system was revamped as Reagan and the following presidents, Bush Sr., Clinton, George W. Bush, sought to improve the concept and lessen government involvement. So, we see at the beginning of the period, Reaganomics. Some government programs are reduced. The ones that you get cash for your welfare, those were reduced. And then we see Clinton, Gingrich. They reduced welfare benefits, workfare, basically saying that if you were on welfare, you had to get a job.
Good afternoon. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I pledged to end welfare as we know it. I have worked very hard for 4 years to do just that. Today, the Congress will vote on legislation that gives us a chance to live up to that promise. To transform a broken system that traps too many people in a cycle of dependence to one that emphasizes work and independence. To give people on welfare a chance to draw a paycheck, not a welfare check.
They didn't want people taking advantage of the system. And then we also see later in the period, during during the W. Bush era, we see compassionate conservatism, this idea that the poor people could be lifted from the shackles of poverty by the government decreasing their involvement, decreasing red tape, bureaucratic incompetence, and allowing them to create jobs, better their communities, and improve their quality of life. Counter argument for this is that Clinton he attempted to preserve food stamps, wanted to improve childcare, and he won fight for Medicare for all. So we see that these welfare policies, they're significant. We can see that he got it done. He got it done. So next point 3, is that during the conservative resurgence, military spending increased under Reagan, and then it decreased under Bush Sr. and Clinton, and it rose once more under George W. Bush following September 11, 2001, and the subsequent war on terror. So throughout this period, for most of the part, there has been an increase in military spending. We see in the 80s the renewal of the Cold War. Just to give you an idea, $456.5 billion with a B, 1987, and this is in 2005 dollars, so it's even more today. And then there's also the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, basically laser beams to hit nukes. Astrodomes over large cities if there's a nuclear attack, because you gotta defend those large cities. And we see during the first half of the Reagan administration, we see these increased tensions between U.S. and USSR. The second half, it kind of loosens a little bit. Reagan and Gorbachev, they have their heart to heart. They negotiate. Like Reagan says, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Kind of see that relaxing tensions. And then during Bush Sr.'s administration, we see the dissolution of the Soviet Union, 1991. So we can see this relaxing and eventually dissipation of tensions. And then we see the war on terror, increasing the military budget. First we send troops to Afghanistan, and eventually it shifts to the war in Iraq. So a lot of money, a lot of manpower, and a lot of weapons. However, you can argue that, you can say that military spending did decrease under H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. This is because, again, the end of the Cold War, the relaxing of tensions. We don't need all these weapons because we don't have public enemy number one. So that's the reason why we see this decrease in military spending. Point 4 is that the American tax system was forever changed under Reagan. It brought about lower rates in hopes of increased prosperity. This is, Reaganomics, Economic Recovery Tax Act, $38 billion phase-in cut. A lot of money, $99 billion today. And then we see with Clinton, we had a tax cut in 1997, so we see the development of the period. This is continuous decrease in taxes. And then Bush, Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act of 2001, EGTRA, if you want to say that acronym like that. You see that development across the period, how this is continual conservative policy with that. Counter argument. Reagan actually did increase some taxes, gas tax, a cigarette tax, and he raised the capital gains tax. George H.W. Bush increased taxes in 1990. Read my lips, no new taxes.
I'm the one who will not raise taxes. My opponent now says he'll raise them as a last resort or a third resort. But when a politician talks like that, that's one resort he'll be checking into. And my opponent won't rule out raising taxes, but I will, and the Congress will push me to raise taxes, and I'll say no. And they'll push, and I'll say no. And they'll push again, and I'll say to them, Read my lips. No new taxes.
Not. He wanted to offset the ballooning national debt for military spending by doing that. And then we see Clinton raise income taxes and Medicare payroll tax and gas tax during his first term. So the synthesis, another important historical, another thinking, part of the APUSH long essay rubric. Coolidge enacted pro-business policies. The business of America is business. He decreased tax and spending 50%, cut the national debt 30%, 1.8% unemployment rate. And we see the similarities here. Reaganomics, the belief that cutting taxes and wasteful, bloated government spending will spur economic growth. And we see how those policies of cutting taxes and government and bloated bureaucracy worked in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, with economic growth and prosperity. So that is it. That is periodization, looking at an issue and how it evolved, nuances with it across the period. And I hope this helps. Because you want me to talk like George Bush when I talk about embryonic stem cell research? Why not? Why'd you? I'll just say it again.
No, don't say it. I still have you talking about George Bush.
Well, it's just gonna be like, why are you not talking about this bullet?
I already you do talk about the bullet, and I put in a video of George Bush actually talking about.
Do you want me to talk about? You want me to read you this slide, or you want me to read it?
Just point 3.
Just this is slide.
That slide and the next 2 because they contradict.
Okay. So our next point is, during the conservative resurgence, military spending increased under Reagan, and then it decreased under Bush Sr. and Clinton, and then it rose once more again. Oh, I gotta go to present mode. Okay. So, you're editing this out. Okay. Is that it? And you point 4 is all good? Yes, it is, Angelo. Okay, great. We're good?
Yep.
And recording.
Your drive, send it to me.